It started on a Monday, the kind of gray, rainy morning that made everyone feel sleepy and slow. The kids walked into Mrs. Hensley's 6th grade classroom dragging their backpacks and yawning. Some were chatting about video games. Others were laughing about a joke someone made on the bus. But in the very last row, near the window, sat a quiet girl no one really talked to. Her name was Lily Carter. Lily had just moved to Millstone from another town 3 weeks ago. Her hair was long, golden brown, but always a little messy. She wore the same blue hoodie almost every day. Her shoes were old, and her jeans had a rip on one knee, not the cool kind, the kind you try to sew but give up on. Lily never raised her hand. She never smiled. She never asked to play during recess. And worst of all, she cried, quietly every day. In class, it wasn't loud. No sobbing, no gasping, just quiet tears. She would tilt her face down, wipe her eyes with her sleeve, and pretend to be reading or writing. Most of the kids didn't notice. Some did and whispered behind her back, "Why does she cry so much? Is she weird or something? Maybe she misses her boyfriend from the old school." Lily never answered. She just stared at her notebook and hoped the day would pass quickly. Mrs. Hensley, the teacher, was busy with 23 students. She was kind, smart, and full of energy. She wore bright colors and always smiled. But even kind teachers can miss the quietest cries in a loud room. For days, she didn't see it. She didn't notice the girl in the back wiping her eyes every single morning. Lily had learned how to hide herself until Thursday. That morning, Mrs. Hensley was handing out math worksheets. As she passed Lily's desk, she noticed a small wet spot on Lily's paper. A tear had dropped on the corner of the sheet. Lily quickly tried to cover it with her hand. Mrs. Hensley paused, looked at her, then smiled gently. "Are you okay, Lily?" she asked softly. Lily nodded fast. Too fast. She didn't speak. Mrs. Hensley didn't want to push too hard. "If you ever need anything, I'm right here, okay?" Lily nodded again. Her eyes were red, but she looked down quickly, pretending to work. That night, Mrs. Hensley couldn't stop thinking about her. She sat on her couch after dinner with a cup of tea and a red notebook where she kept notes about each student. "Lily Carter," she wrote. "Quiet. New. Cries in class. Hides pain. Needs help." She closed the notebook slowly. The next day, Mrs. Hensley tried something different. During reading time, she sat next to Lily. "Hey," she whispered. "I'm reading a really good story. Want to hear it?" Lily shrugged. Mrs. Hensley opened the book and began to read softly just to her. It was a story about a little bird who got lost in the forest and had to find its way home. Lily didn't say anything, but her eyes followed the pages. That was the first time Lily didn't cry during class, not even once. But the tears came back on Monday. That morning, Lily came in late. Her hood was up. Her eyes looked swollen. She walked quickly to her seat and didn't look at anyone. Mrs. Hensley watched her closely now. After class, she gently pulled Lily aside. "Would you like to have lunch with me today? Just you and me?" Lily froze. "No trouble, I promise." Mrs. Hensley smiled. "We'll eat, maybe talk, maybe not. Just some quiet time." Lily nodded slowly. At lunch, they sat in the teacher's lounge. Mrs. Hensley brought the sandwiches, juice boxes, and an apple each. Lily took small bites. She didn't talk much, but when Mrs. Hensley asked about her favorite color, she whispered, "Green." That was a start. After that day, Lily began eating lunch with Mrs. Hensley every Tuesday and Thursday. It was always quiet but peaceful. Lily began to smile, just a little. Not every day, but more than before. Still, the crying didn't stop completely. Some days were better, some worse. One morning, when the class was working on a writing assignment, Mrs. Hensley asked them to write about someone they miss. Most kids wrote about grandparents or old friends, but Lily didn't write anything. She just sat there, her pencil still and her head down. After class, Mrs. Hensley found the paper on Lily's desk. It was blank except for one sentence written at the very top. I miss the person I used to be. Mrs. Hensley felt a tight knot in her chest as she read it. That night, she cried. She cried for a girl she barely knew because she now understood that something deep, something painful, was hidden inside Lily's silence. She decided it was time to do more. She called the school counselor, Mrs. Sims, and told her everything. She needs someone, Mrs. Hensley said, her voice soft but firm. She's breaking quietly, and no one sees it, Mrs. Sims agreed to talk to Lily the next day, but when that day came, Lily didn't show up to school, nor the next day, nor the next. She had disappeared, and no one knew why, not yet, but what they would soon discover would shock everyone, even Mrs. Hensley, because Lily's tears were not just from sadness, they were from something darker, something she had been hiding for a long time, and only one person had noticed soon enough to help her. The school bell rang at 8:30 a.m. as usual, and the sixth graders rushed into class. Some were laughing, some looked sleepy. The air smelled like rain again, but one seat in the back row was still empty, Lily's seat. Mrs. Hensley looked at the chair every 5 minutes. She kept glancing at the door, hoping Lily would walk in late again with her hoodie up and quiet steps. But she didn't. By a.m., Mrs. Hensley felt a knot forming in her stomach. She tried to focus on the math lesson, but her voice kept shaking. A little. Even the students noticed. Is Lily sick? A girl named Haley asked during recess. Mrs. Hensley smiled softly. Maybe. We'll see. But inside, she was worried. Really worried. At lunch, Mrs. Hensley went to the school office and asked the secretary if they had heard from Lily's family. The secretary checked a sheet. No call from the Carters. No message. It's strange, Mrs. Hensley nodded slowly. Can you please let me know if anyone calls? That evening, as the school grew quiet and the classrooms emptied, Mrs. Hensley sat alone at her desk, staring at Lily's old assignments. She pulled out the writing sheet again, the one that said, I miss the person I used to be. She ran her finger across the words. Something wasn't right. Later that night, unable to sleep, Mrs. Hensley decided to search online. She looked up Lily's mother, whose name was listed in the school files. Sandra Carter. What she found made her chest tighten. A few years ago, Sandra had been in the news. A story about a divorce, a bitter custody battle, allegations of emotional abuse, nothing proven, but the reports were there. Sandra had lost custody of her older child from a different marriage. Now she had only Lily. The article ended coldly. The mother denied all allegations. Mrs. Hensley leaned back in her chair, her eyes wide. Dear God. The next morning, Lily was still missing. This time, Mrs. Hensley couldn't wait anymore. She marched to the principal's office and requested a home visit. The principal, Mr. Hayes, was cautious but agreed. He called the school counselor to go with Mrs. Hensley, and together they drove to the address on file. The house was a small white bungalow with peeling paint and an overgrown yard. The windows were shut tight. Mrs. Hensley knocked on the door. No answer. She knocked again, louder this time. Finally, the door opened. A woman stood there, thin, pale, tired-looking. Her eyes were cold, almost empty. Yes, she asked flatly. Good morning, Mrs. Sims, the counselor said calmly. We're from Millstone Elementary. We're just here to check on Lily. She's missed several days of school, and we're a little concerned. The woman blinked. She's fine. Can we speak to her? Mrs. Hensley asked. The woman hesitated, then opened the door a bit wider. She's in her room, Mrs. Hensley followed the woman down a dark hallway. The walls were bare. The floor creaked. There was no music, no sign of joy. She stopped in front of a door. The woman knocked hard. Lily, come out. No answer. Lily now. After a moment, the door creaked open slowly. There she was, Lily, smaller than Mrs. Hensley remembered. Her eyes were red. Her face was pale. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Hi, sweetheart, Mrs. Hensley said gently. Lily's Lips trembled. Mrs. Sims stepped forward. Can we talk to you for a minute, Lily? Lily looked at her mom, then back at the women. She nodded slowly. They sat together in the tiny living room. Mrs. Sims spoke first. Lily, we just want to know if you're okay. You haven't been in school, and we've noticed you've seemed very sad lately. Lily looked down at her hands. Then she whispered, I didn't want to come back, Mrs. Hensley leaned closer. Why, sweetheart? Tears welled in Lily's eyes again. Because it's better at school than here. But when I come back, she gets mad, Mrs. Sims spoke gently. Who gets mad, Lily? My mom. The room fell silent. Lily continued, still whispering. She says I smile too much when I come home. She says school is turning me into someone soft, Mrs. Hensley felt her stomach twist. Does she hurt you? Mrs. Sims asked carefully. Lily hesitated, then nodded. Sometimes she doesn't let me eat. Or she locks my door. She yells a lot. She says if I cry, I'm weak, Mrs. Hensley's hand went to her mouth. The mother stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. Her face was tight, jaw clenched. She's lying, she snapped. She's always lying. She wants attention, Mrs. Sims stood up calmly. Ma'am, we'll need to contact Child Protective Services to look into this further, the woman exploded. She's just a child. She doesn't know what she's saying. But Lily was crying now, not the quiet, hidden tears from class, but loud, full sobs that filled the room. Mrs. Hensley wrapped her arms around her. It's okay, Lily. You're safe now. I promise. I'm not going to leave you. That day, everything changed. CPS arrived within an hour. They interviewed Lily separately. They took notes, photos, and statements. By the end of the day, they made a decision. Lily would not stay in that house that night. She was placed in temporary care with a local foster family. As the sun set, Lily sat in a warm, clean room with a soft bed and a nightlight. The foster mother brought her warm soup and a blanket. She didn't say much, but she smiled kindly. Lily held the soup with both hands and whispered, "Thank you," and for the first time in many weeks, she didn't cry. She just stared out the window, wondering what would happen next. But one thing she knew for sure, someone had finally seen her. She wasn't invisible anymore. The next morning, Lily woke up in a soft bed with clean white sheets and a light pink blanket tucked around her. A warm smell filled the air, toast and eggs. A small dog barked somewhere in the house. She sat up slowly, blinking at the sunlight coming through the curtains. For a moment, she felt confused. This wasn't her old room. There were no locked doors, no shouting voices, no broken lamp on the floor, just silence and safety. A gentle knock came at the door. Lily froze, but then a kind voice followed. "Good morning, Lily. It's Mrs. Carter, not your mom. I'm just your foster mom for now, okay?" The door opened, and a short, round woman with soft eyes stepped in, holding a tray. "I thought you might be hungry," she said with a smile. "You didn't eat much last night." Lily looked at the food. Scrambled eggs, 2 pieces of toast, and a glass of orange juice. The toast had strawberry jam on it. "Thank you," Lily whispered, her voice still unsure. Mrs. Carter sat on the edge of the bed. "I don't know what you like yet, but I'll learn." Lily looked down at her lap. "Do I have to go back?" Mrs. Carter shook her head gently. "No, sweetheart, not right now. The social workers are going to take care of everything. For now, this is your home." Lily bit her lip. Her eyes filled again, but not from sadness. For once, it was something else. Relief. Later that morning, a woman named Miss Rachel came to visit. She was from Child Protective Services. She brought a notebook and a kind smile. She sat with Lily in the living room and asked soft, slow questions. "Can you tell me what would happen on a normal day at home?" Lily picked at the edge of her sleeve. "She'd yell if I was too loud, or too quiet, or if I looked too happy, or too sad." "Did she ever hit you?" Lily nodded. "Not hard, just enough so I'd stop asking questions." Miss Rachel wrote that down, then gently asked, "Is there anyone you trust?" Lily thought for a moment, then whispered, Mrs. Hensley, that name, one small teacher's name, was all the proof. They needed to take the next step. At Millstone Elementary, Mrs. Hensley was standing in her classroom, reading over lesson plans, when the school secretary knocked and handed her a letter. She opened it, read the first line, and tears immediately filled her eyes. "Dear Mrs. Hensley, Lily Carter has been placed in protective foster care for the time being. She asks that you be informed and sends this short note personally." Inside was a small piece of lined paper. On it, in the small, neat handwriting she had learned to recognize, were the words, "Thank you for seeing me." Mrs. Hensley sat down in her chair, her hands shaking. She had never received a note that meant more than this one. The next Monday, Lily returned to school. This time, she wasn't wearing the same blue hoodie. Mrs. Carter had taken her shopping over the weekend and bought her a yellow cardigan, a purple backpack, and a new pair of sneakers that actually fit. When she stepped into the classroom, a few kids whispered. Some smiled. One boy named Drew said, "Hey, you're back." Lily smiled a real, small smile. Mrs. Hensley looked up from her desk and her eyes lit up. "Lily, it's so good to see you." Lily walked to the back row as usual, but this time, something was different. She sat up straighter. She looked around the room. She didn't try to disappear. After morning lessons, Mrs. Hensley called for reading time. As usual, kids formed small groups to read together. For the first time, Lily joined. She sat beside Haley, Drew, and a girl named Megan. They read a story about a fox who got lost in the city. Lily laughed at one part, a soft laugh, but loud enough for someone to hear. Haley turned to her and smiled. "You have a nice laugh." Lily blinked, surprised. "Thanks," she said quietly. After school, Mrs. Hensley walked out to the front gate where Lily stood with Mrs. Carter, waiting for the car. "I saw you reading with the group today," she said warmly. Lily nodded. "I'm proud of you." Lily looked down at her new shoes. "It's still hard," she whispered. "I know," Mrs. Hensley said, "but you're not alone anymore." That night, back in her new foster room, Lily pulled out her journal, something Mrs. Carter had given her as a gift. On the first page, she wrote, "Day 1. I didn't cry today. I made it." Then, on the next line, "Mrs. Hensley saw me when no one else did. I think she saved my life." Back at school, Mrs. Hensley had started preparing something special. She worked late into the evening, pulling photos, poems, and student stories into a scrapbook. In the middle of the book, she left a page blank with the title. The day we noticed, she planned to give it to Lily at the end of the year. A reminder that being seen, truly seen, can change everything. And across town, in a quiet room filled with warm lights and new hope, Lily fell asleep without tears for the second night in a row. To be continued. Lily's life didn't change all at once. It wasn't like in the movies where everything becomes perfect in one day. Some mornings were still hard. Some nights, she still had dreams that made her wake up with her heart beating fast. But little by little, things were different now. She began to smile more in class. She raised her hand once during a science lesson. Mrs. Hensley had to pause, surprised but proud, when Lily answered a question about the planets. "That's correct," she said, smiling. "Great job, Lily." Lily smiled back, shy but proud of herself. At lunch, she no longer sat alone. Haley had started inviting her to sit at the round table by the windows, where Megan and Drew also ate. At first, Lily only listened, but soon, she started talking too. Just a little, then a little more. She told them about her favorite candy cherry lollipops, her favorite show, a cartoon about a robot dog, and how she used to build pillow forts in her old house before things got bad. "Why did they get bad?" Drew asked. One day, Lily paused. The question hung in the air. Then she answered, "Because sometimes grown-ups are broken too. And when they don't fix themselves, they break other people." The group went quiet. Then Haley gently placed her hand on Lily's arm. "You're not broken." Lily smiled again. "Not anymore." At home with Mrs. Carter, Lily was getting used to having routines. dinner at 6, homework after, a warm bath, a goodnight hug. She didn't always know how to accept kindness. Sometimes she froze when Mrs. Carter hugged her. Sometimes she jumped at loud noises. But slowly, she began to trust that this new home was safe. One Friday, Mrs. Hensley made an announcement in class. We're starting our class writing project. Everyone will write a story. It can be fiction or about your real life. At the end of the month, we'll read them out loud if you want to. A few students groaned, but most were excited. Lily froze in her seat, writing about her life, reading it out loud. She wasn't sure if she could do it. That afternoon, after school, she stayed behind while the others rushed to the buses. Mrs. Hensley looked up. Lily, everything okay? I'm not sure what to write about, Lily said. Well, Mrs. Hensley said gently, sometimes the best stories come from the hardest places. You don't have to share it with the class unless you want to, but writing it down, it might help. Lily nodded slowly. I'll try. That night, in her quiet foster room, Lily sat at her small desk. She opened her journal, took out a clean page, and began to write. My name is Lily Carter, and this is the story of how I became myself again. She wrote for hours. She wrote about the pain, the yelling, the hunger, but she also wrote about the little things, the purple backpack, the strawberry jam, the book about the little bird, and the teacher who read to her even when she had no words. When she was done, her hands hurt, but her heart felt lighter. She brought the story to class. On Monday, during free reading time, she handed it to Mrs. Hensley. Can you read it? Mrs. Hensley took it, read quietly, and by the end, her eyes were wet. It's beautiful, she whispered. Can I read it to the class? Lily asked. Not today, but maybe at the end. Mrs. Hensley nodded. You absolutely can. Over the next few weeks, Lily seemed to grow taller, not in size, but in spirit. Her classmates noticed too. She was still quiet, still gentle, but no longer invisible. On the day of the storytelling event, the classroom was decorated with colorful drawings and posters. Parents were invited. Each child stood and read their story aloud. Some were funny, some were silly, some were full of adventure. Then it was Lily's turn. She walked to the front of the class. Her hands shook a little. She looked at the crowd, parents, teachers, students, and then found Mrs. Hensley's eyes in the front row. She took a deep breath and began to read. My name is Lily Carter. I used to cry every day in class. I used to hide in my hoodie, wishing no one would see me. But one day, someone did. A teacher who noticed my tears. A class that opened their arms. A home that finally felt safe. The room went silent. No one moved. Lily's voice grew stronger. I'm not the same girl I was before. I'm learning to be brave. I'm learning to speak. And most of all, I'm learning that being seen can change everything. When she finished, the room stayed still for a moment, then applause filled the air. Loud, warm, real. Mrs. Hensley stood first, clapping through her tears. Lily smiled a full, proud smile, not the smile of someone pretending, the smile of someone healing. That night, back at home, Lily placed her story on her shelf. Beside it, she put a small note. It said, Chapter 1. The day I stopped hiding. There were still many chapters left in her life, but now she had the strength to write them, and this time, she would not be writing in silence. Spring came early to Millstone that year. The trees bloomed pink and white along the sidewalks. Bees buzzed lazily past the windows, and children laughed louder during recess. It was the kind of season that made everything feel new, and for Lily Carter, it truly was. At school, she was no longer just the girl in the back row. She had become someone the other kids looked up to. She wasn't the loudest or the most popular, but she was strong in a quiet way, like a tree that had survived a storm. One morning, as she walked into class, Megan waved her over. Hey Lily, wanna sit with us during lunch today? We're playing a no after. Lily smiled. I'd like that. Mrs. Hensley watched from her desk, her heart full. The change in Lily was more than just on the outside. She walked taller now. Her eyes were brighter. Her shoulders no longer curved in like she was trying to disappear. Even the other teachers noticed. "That girl's come alive," said Mr. Jenkins, the gym teacher. "She used to look so lost," said Miss Kay from the art room. "Now look at her. She paints with joy." In the art room, Lily had started drawing pictures of birds, houses, and sunrises. One painting she made showed a little girl sitting on a swing, with a teacher gently pushing her from behind. She titled it "Someone Saw Me." It was displayed proudly on the hallway wall. One afternoon, Mrs. Carter, Lily's foster mom, picked her up from school and gave her news that would change her life again. "Honey," she said as they drove home, "there's a couple that wants to meet you. They're interested in adopting a child. I spoke with your caseworker. They read your story. They want to meet you." Lily froze. "Adopt me?" Mrs. Carter nodded. "Only if you want to. You can say no, but they sound like really kind people." Lily was quiet the whole ride home. Her heart beat fast. She had learned to be cautious with hope to not grab it too quickly. That weekend, she met them, a man and woman named Peter and Claire Hughes. They were warm, gentle, and full of questions, but not the kind that made her nervous. They asked what kind of books she liked, what music made her smile, and what she dreamed of doing when she grew up. "I want to write," Lily said softly, "and maybe help kids who are scared like I was." Claire smiled. "That's beautiful," Peter added, "and brave." By the end of the meeting, Lily didn't want to leave the coffee shop. She had laughed more in that 1 hour than she had in some of her early years. A month later, the adoption was official. Lily moved in with the Hughes family. Her room had light blue walls, a shelf for books, and a reading chair near the window. On her desk was a small sign that read, "Welcome home, Lily." The first night, as she sat on her new bed, she wrote in her journal, "This is the first place I've lived that feels like forever." Back at school, news spread quickly. Mrs. Hensley made a quiet announcement to the class, "Lily has been adopted. She'll be staying at Millstone until the end of the year, and then she'll attend Lakeside Middle School near her new home." There were gasps, then claps. Haley stood up and asked, "Can we throw her a goodbye party?" Mrs. Hensley smiled. Of course. The last week of school was filled with balloons, cards, and hugs. On her final day, Lily stood in front of the class the same way she had during the story event, but this time with a gift in her hands. It was a scrapbook. She walked over and handed it to Mrs. Hensley. "I made this for you," she said. "It's all the memories you gave me and a few new ones too." Mrs. Hensley opened the first page. There were drawings, photos, and little notes from Lily. One page read, "You saw the tears I tried to hide. You gave me space to be myself again. You saved me without even knowing how much I needed saving." Mrs. Hensley's eyes filled with tears. She stood and hugged Lily tightly. "You saved yourself," she whispered. "I just stood beside you." Outside, the school bus waited. Lily hugged her classmates goodbye, each one, even the ones who barely spoke to her before. When she stepped onto the bus, she turned back for one last look. The old school building stood quietly under the bright summer sun, and at the front door, Mrs. Hensley waved with both hands, smiling through her tears. As the bus pulled away, Lily felt something new in her chest, not fear, not sadness, but peace. A few months later, in her new home, Lily started 7th grade. She made new friends, joined the school writing club, and even stood on stage to read her poem during an assembly. Her poem was called, "I Used to Cry." It began like this: "I used to cry where no one could see, but someone looked closer and reached for me. A teacher, a smile, a gentle voice helped me remember I had a choice." And it ended like this: "Now I walk in the light with courage in my feet, and every tear I cried made my story complete." The audience gave her a standing ovation. She had cried every day in class until one teacher noticed, and that one moment had changed everything. Now, Lily was more than a survivor. She was a storyteller. She was strong, she was home, the end.